As I mentioned in the previous mini module, criminologists try to explain why people do things so we can figure out how to stop them from engaging in those behaviors. One of the common crime prevention techniques, it's known as situational crime prevention, has been used to demonstrate how we can practice certain guardianship activities in order to reduce cybersecurity concerns and to reduce cybercrime. So this is another example of how criminal justice and cybersecurity overlap. Criminal justice, as a discipline, is able to identify potential guardianship activities that will help to make computer behavior, cyber behavior, internet behavior, technologically driven behavior safer. Researchers Hindva and Kwa did a study. It was published in 2013. But they took these principles of situational crime prevention that have been discussed in the literature, and they applied them specifically to cybersecurity. Now, this notion of situational crime prevention, it's connected to a theory that looks at and examines how people make decisions and how we might structure an environment or a situation to alter those decisions. And this situational crime prevention then focuses on guardianship strategies that look at the context surrounding various crimes. Key here is that the focus is on the crime, not on the offender. And there what we mean is strategies are used to focus on the context of behavior. And how can we fix an environment or fix a situation so that it's less likely that individuals will engage in certain types of behaviors. For instance, one example that has nothing to do with cybercrime, but will get the point across, is I remember hearing police officers talk about having a problem with loitering in a particular area in the park, and they decided we're going to put a trash can there. They put a trash can there, and people stopped loitering. They changed the environment. They didn't focus on the offender, but they focused on the crime, and then made some changes, and the behavior changed. Same things can happen with cyber offending, and we can talk about several strategies that are used. And in fact, Hindva and Kwa identified several specific types of activities, such as target hardening. Target hardening simply means we make it harder to get to certain types of targets that might be a part of a cyber offense or cyber victimization. One of these might be duo factor control, where people have to log in twice to get to something, or they have to have a code or a thumbprint or an eye print or whatever it is. We harden the target so that people can't get the cyberspace as easily. Access control. We limit who has access to certain types of information and certain types of data. And we make it so that that access is not granted that easily. And that's a way we enhance guardianship using a criminal justice framework. Also, removing or deflecting offenders is another strategy that Hindva and Kwa talked about, that there may be instances where we simply don't allow people to be in a part of cyberspace because of that concern that they would engage in certain types of behavior. Sex offenders aren't allowed to use computers typically once they've been convicted. We remove them from that environment so that they're not able to offend. Controlling facilitators simply refers to the notion that we would try to have individuals who are limiting access to cyberspace. And these facilitators, as we call them, would help to monitor cyber use. Entry and exit screening. This refers to instances where security is watching who's coming in and who's going out. Now, on the one hand, it might be physical security. On the other hand, there's entry and exit screening in cyberspace where individuals would engage in those behaviors. There's also formal surveillance where you have our cybersecurity officers, our cybersecurity officials watching over closely those who might be engaging in potentially harmful behavior. And we watch where they're coming from, we watch how long they're there, we watch where they go. Surveillance by employees simply refers to instances where we ask the rest of the workforce to help watch out for potential offenses. Maybe this might be an example of phishing attacks, and we ask employees to report those and to watch for those. There's also natural surveillance. It may be that we have computer rooms that we have windows all around the room so that anyone can see in there, can see who's in that space, and the light can get in and vision can get in. We have target removal where we may not have access, we may not have the physical computer itself or the systems in a particular space because we want to have that potential target removed from the possible offending. Similar way, we may remove temptations and remove the desire or whatever those triggers are that would make an offender want to be into a particular part of cyberspace. Denying benefits, and this is very similar to access control and who gets access, but if we make it so the offender has no purpose to be in a particular part of cyberspace, that would be a type of guardianship activity. And then there's also rule setting. Rule setting might be something like allowing access only for a certain amount of time, or allowing a certain number of logins before someone's not able to log in again, whatever it may be. Again, all of these examples that are common types of cybersecurity practices actually have their roots in traditional types of crime prevention. And so the point here again is that criminal justice plays a significant role in determining how we're going to protect and guard cyberspace. Another area that criminal justice plays a significant role in is to try and figure out how much offending and victimization occurs. Criminologists are intricately involved in measuring offending and victimization, and we do it through different ways. We do a lot of our research through government agencies, and we access government reports. One common report that you'll see cited is the Internet Crime Complaint Center report. And this database, or maybe database is not the right way to describe it, but this official report in this FBI-driven center provides information to us about how much cybercrime is believed to occur. Here's the website of the FBI Internet Crime Complaint Center, known as IC3. Now, IC3 engages in a number of different activities. It receives information about crime complaints from either the victim who experienced it or others that might be involved in knowing about an offense. It also will share that information, share crime prevention tips. They will publicize crime schemes that are ongoing. And while they do these things, perhaps what you'll hear about most often is this annual report that the Internet Crime Complaint Center publishes. And this is particularly useful because in talking about how much crime occurs, this annual report will provide some insight into how much crime on the Internet has been reported to the FBI. And you'll see charts such as this one that show fairly dramatic increases in the number of Internet offenses that have occurred. 1.4 million between 2013 and 2017. And note these losses. 5.5 billion in total losses. Very significant. Now I would encourage you, if you have a moment, to peek through this report because it has some incredibly useful information about crime patterns, about where crime's happening, about who's engaging in the crimes, and those sorts of things. And it's useful in that it gives a perspective about the kinds of trends that we're seeing in internet crime, as well as the possible geographic patterns that we might see. Now, one of the huge advantages of the annual report from the Internet Crime Complaint Center, or other types of official data for that matter, is that it's easily accessible, and these sorts of reports provide data over time. So we can look at these long-term trends. However, one major disadvantage is that these official reports tell us absolutely nothing about crimes that nobody tells the police about. If we don't report the crime to the authorities, to an official agency, they don't know about it. So it's certainly important to keep that in mind when we look at these data and we say that this many crimes occurred. No, this many crimes were reported is a more accurate way to think about it. Now, another way that criminologists figure out how much cybercrime is occurring is through these self-report surveys, where we simply ask people, have you either engaged in these behaviors or have you had these behaviors happen to you? Now, criminologists, we go through a lot of training to learn how to ask questions. We don't ask people, have you ever committed a cybercrime? Or have you ever been a victim of a cybercrime? Those questions would be ridiculous to ask it that way. So what criminologists do is we figure out ways to ask our questions in ways that are more, I don't want to say conversational, but more operational, and we ask about specific behaviors. Has anyone in the past year tried to log into your account who wasn't supposed to? In the past year, have you ever tried to log into someone's account that you weren't supposed to log into? In the past year, how many times have you purchased something online that didn't actually turn out to be what you thought you were buying? We would ask it more scientifically than that. But note that we're asking about behaviors, not about general concepts. And we do that because we get a more accurate indication we do that. Also note that in our training, we don't typically ask yes or no. We ask how often offenders or victims experience things, because that gives us a little bit more insight. People are more honest when you ask about how often things happen rather than did you do this or did you do that. Just a little criminological survey point that I would share with you. There's advantages here. One advantage is when we ask people questions, we're able to address what's called the dark figure of crime. And this is the amount of crime that nobody knows about, that nobody tells the authorities about. And self-report surveys help us to assess that. Self-report surveys, though, have sometimes questions about validity. Are they valid? Are people being honest? Are people, if you ask me, am I trying to log into someone's account that I wasn't supposed to log into? Well, maybe I logged into my kids because I wanted to check their email because I want to parent them. Well, that might be captured as a hacking offense in a self-report survey. Another problem is that these self-report surveys are hard to conduct. They're not incredibly easy. They take some time. While they take some time, they can be incredibly worthwhile. So all of this is simply to bring home the point that criminologists are in a very good position to demonstrate the pervasiveness of cybercrime. Probably a much better position than other types of researchers might be. And what we'll see is that while they're in that position to assess how often these offenses occur, they also are able to share that information in a way that helps to determine who should be responding to these offenses. And that's what we'll discuss in the next mini module, how criminal justice helps develop future employees.